this video, I will show you how to write SOAP notes to reflect your sessions with your students and what to include in them. Keeping regular, accurate notes helps us document students' challenges and strengths, develop an appropriate plan for our work together, record yoga practices we guide them in, and lifestyle recommendations we give them, and keep track of their progress. Here's how we can do it with Sequence Wiz. To add a new session note, you can do it from your dashboard widget for recent session notes and just clicking Add New Note button. Or you can go through student profiles by clicking on Students and then selecting Student Profile. So let's take a look at profiles. We'll go to Students, Abby Jones, and then scroll to Session Notes. So far we don't have any notes for Abby, and we're going to click on plus sign to add new session note. As you can see, the student name is already pre-filled at the top, as well as the date and time of you writing that note. You can always change the date to the date of the actual session and the time of the actual session. And it's also very useful to add keywords that describe the focus of your session so that it's easier for you to find the session later on. And let's put digestive distress. Let's say this is what we worked on with Abby. So you can begin your session by marking the part of the body that was your primary focus for that session. You can use our visual tagging system to do that. For example, if Abby had complained about the discomfort on the right side of her lower abdomen, you can tag it there, change the name to and then give it a description, preferably in her own words. How did she describe this sensation? Let's say she described it as tugging and pulling sensation on the right side of her abdomen. Then you can proceed with your notes. So you can mark a primary focus of your work together. What did you choose to focus on? Or maybe your student had remarked that she feels this discomfort a lot after sitting. So you might decide to investigate whether or not there's a connection between abdominal discomfort and tightness in your hip flexors facilitated by sedentary lifestyle, for example. So let's use that as our example for today. In the subjective area, you would want to spell out the student's description of the problem. How exactly did your student describe the pain? We already marked the tugging, pulling sensation, directly quoting your student's report. In subjective, you can provide a little bit more information about that. What did your student say about her situation and how did she describe it? And not just the sensation itself, but also her thoughts about the sensations, how she feels about what's going on, and what does she think is happening to her. So you would put all this information in subjective area. In the objective section of the note, you would describe the actions you decided to take to address her challenges. So here you would include information on every activity you guided your client through. First, you would identify the goal that might be similar to your primary focus. So let's say you decided to explore the connection between abdominal discomfort and your hip flexors. And if this is your goal, then you would use different asana to facilitate the stretching and contraction of her hip flexors and to see whether or not it would have any impact on her abdominal discomfort. So you might use poses like forward bends, for example, maybe specific forward bends to make it happen. Maybe supine leg lifts. So whatever you choose to do, you would describe it right here in asana section. Just different categories of poses that you decided to experiment with. Then in breath section, you would add what kind of breath emphasis you added to the session. It might be something simple, just strictly deepening the breathing, or it might be something specific like directing breathing into the belly, or maybe using the breath to create a sense of spaciousness in the belly. Whatever you choose to do with the breath, you would write it here. And then what did you encourage your client to do with her attention? So there are different ways of how to approach that, and different places where you can ask your clients to direct their attention, whether it's a particular area of the body or particular muscle group, or her breath, or even her attitude toward what's going on and how she feels about a particular movement or particular sensation, and what kind of images or thoughts or memories it brings up in her. So all those things you would record in attention part of your objective section. And then any other things you did with your client, you would put under other. Maybe you chose to do a particular meditation or used mudras or any other strategies or yogic tools, you would list them here. In the assessment section, you would indicate your summary of how the session went, whether or not you feel like the tools, the strategies that you've used were effective, and what kind of response they facilitated from your clients. Here again, you would talk to your clients about it, any sort of insights that your client might have experienced throughout the session, or anything, any relevant information that you've observed throughout the session as it relates to their primary problem. You would record all that in the assessment section. And then you would create a plan for your future work together. What would you like to focus on next time in your next session? How do you see you proceeding to the next step based on all the work you've done this time and the kind of information you gathered from your client and her response to the session? What direction would you like to move in? So you would put that in the plan section. If you give your client a homework assignment, specifically some sort of home yoga practice, you would mark it here. What would you like your student to focus on? Maybe some sort of a short practice. And you can always attach the sequence that you give her using the attach sequence button. Or maybe you would like to recommend particular lifestyle choices, for example, watching particular aspects of her diet, or integrating breaks into her day if sedentary lifestyle seems to be a big problem, or any other suggestions you might have for her to pay attention to in her daily life. And then a quick note for yourself of what would you like to do next time. What would be the next step in your work together based on all the information that you've gathered this time? You can always add additional files here. If you have pictures or documents or anything else that's relevant to this session, you can click on Attach File and add your files here. And after you're done entering the information, you can click on Add button. Now this session is added to your client's profile. You can duplicate this session for next time if your sessions don't vary too much from one session to the other. You can delete the session, or you can finalize it. Finalizing the session will lock it, meaning that you will not be able to edit it anymore, but you will still be able to duplicate the session. And this is how we add session notes to client profile.